I'm Margaret Ann Windsor. Um, Peggy Ann Dempsey Childers is the name given me when I was kidnapped in 41 for Buckingham Palace. I was born in 39, brought to Moulton, Alabama, given the name of a twin, Peggy Ann Dempsey. I married a Childers. Both twins were deceased, born in a different year. It was a pigsty. I grew up thinking, or being told, let me say this, that Lina Dempsey was my mother, and she was a psychopath who killed the twins. I found out in '83 my real name. My father is Edward VIII. A double was used to depose him. He married Wallace Simpson. My father was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe Windsor. Legally, she was a commoner and Catholic American. And the Freemasons or Trilateral or New World Order, which Elizabeth Windsor Mountbatten is. And her father, George VI, sold out his own brother and stole the monarchy and signed illegal treaties that allowed the United States to put its launching pad, its bases all over British soil. I have been tortured. I've said that over and over. I've done tapes. I'm going to show, I don't think I've done this. I was going to continue the last one, Good Guy, Bad Guy, and the use of mind control and murders. I wrote about, I'll say that again, 77, 78. One of the doctors, Larry McDonald, was a congressman that I wrote about in the programming and mind control. And actually in '83, his plane was shot down in the ocean. Everybody on it died. It was a Korean jetliner. So without going into all that, I was flown to Larry Flint's for political support because he had been shot in Lawrenceville March the 6th of '83. No, excuse me, March 6th of '78. I was flown to his home for political support. Wrote me up editorial later in '84, and by the way, I lost contact with him. Well, he was sent to prison too, Butner. But anyway, for telling the truth. But actually, I was living in Falls Church, and I got a phone call, and it was a federal agent who they knew where I was. He said he was working at Hustler. So they knew where I was. They'd sent me the magazine with the endorsement, April of '84. So anyway, I'm going to skip there and go to some of the just a couple of the mind control murders. I will show my father again. By the way, during that campaign in '83, there was one reporter that did take me out to eat. His name was Henderson, and he worked for one of the Dallas papers. I can't remember which one, but that in itself was a bit odd since he was the only one that asked to take me out and fed me dinner. I want to show real quick, though, how, before I get to the other, so I don't forget where I was at, I've had to do this tape over and over. It's too long or something. I want to show how, when I came up here and lived on the trail and starved and froze and I had gasoline, polyurethane, when I was managed to get a tent or a sleeping bag, roll around at night, dying from it. I'm allergic to chemicals. So anyway, they use the law enforcement, which is the Rangers, part of the agriculture department, which was Goodlatte. Bob Goodlatte was over. He's U.S. House of Representatives. Now then, he's over the judicial. So anyway, I've been in his office a few times, and yes, they know all this. So this is the times that they did this. They actually locked me up and did the patterns in federal court, and that was Judge Wilson's court. They actually role play the patterns with Woody. Woody would be associated with Woody Harrelson that played Larry Flint in the movie. You had Kathy Nichols, who was really, ask yourself why she's in on all this. She was over the investigating thing here in Roanoke, this area. Later, the Nichols name is used in Brian Nichols, the shooting in Fulton County, where the custom officer and sheriff's deputy and all that was shot, where Wayne Williams was found guilty and all that in the murders in Atlanta. But they've used the agencies, and if you go back to the times that they arrested me, they run me, they coincide a bit with, if not exactly, with Waco, Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma City, etc. So I'm just going to show you just one thing here. This is Eric Smith. Okay, I've shown you that. But they actually use the agencies to run me and all that. Now then, I mean, they went out and reached all of them. I mean, it's a hideous mess. It really is. I want to say this, I'm jumping back and forth, but I want to say this, JFK's killing a scar on Dallas, always. You know, this, I've said this again, he's mafia. His father helped kidnap me. They were murdering rats. Yet they're renowned just as Elizabeth, who sold out, and she's a fraud and an imposter. She's not the legitimate heir. People love them. I've been treated in ways while the laws, I've been tortured my whole life. I'm almost 75 years old. Nobody's told this, any of it. The only time it's written up in the paper that I know of is a few times in the Atlanta Journal, and it didn't really tell the truth then about the campaign and what would make me come up here and start living on the Appalachian Trail and leave it at that. I'll say this, that John Kennedy, I said this once before, when I first came here and was living on the trail, have a place to be, jobs shut down, all of it. I don't know if you can see it or it even matters, I guess, at this point. Up the old trail on Mountain Pass, you had somebody come up it, and it was before the new trail, so that was in early, I guess, 93, and I'd stayed up there frozen and part of the winter and all this, and the snow and ice, and that gets cold up there, especially with no tent. Anyway, the point is that this fella comes walking up with a backpack and his buddy, and I said, hey, you look like John Kennedy, and I'm standing there starving. He said, well, that's who I am. And so they had come from Boston, and he said he wanted to see how I was living, and that's exactly what he said. And I thought, he made a special trip to Roanoke, had a backpack on, came up and walked a mile and a half up to Full Heart Knob Shelter just to see how I was doing. Well, that was a joke. It was a joke that they'd kidnapped the monarch, Victoria II, and done this to me. His plane went down with his wife, who was a twin. Later, I've forgotten that. It was in July, I know that, about the 16th of 90, I've forgotten. But Caroline's doing good. She's the ambassador now, no doubt, to Japan, of all things. Now then, before I quit here, by the way, Timothy McVeigh, the other name associated with Nichols, as is Kathy Nichols or Brian Nichols, is Terry Nichols, Oklahoma City, and he's in prison in Oklahoma City. I want to mention these, and yes, they are mind control murders. It's invisible. How do you prove it unless you've got someone that's done it in patterns? And then time changes, so agencies change. So is it ever forced toe or by the media, who's controlled by the people that kidnapped me, the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, United States presidents, part of the Skull and Bones. But anyway, Chris Reeves, Superman, Charlottesville, fell off a horse. Okay, so he fell off a horse. This is the way people want to leave it. Spinal cord, unable to move. His wife was very loving and took care of him. She died of cancer, which I've told about when I was doing the book. Mind control can make you commit any murder, make disappear of natural cause. You can create an illness. You can cure it. So his wife died of cancer, and I'll leave it at that. Actor Steve Reeves, and by the way, I was living at Warren House apartment in '80, working for District Attorney Simpson. Went to a doctor I'd worked for at Huntsville Clinic back in about, 61, I guess. I think I worked for him twice there in the hospital, that clinic. But he actually started telling me about Steve McQueen and being here, that he knew he'd been taken across to Mexico, and he was put on the table, and I actually heard the tape later. I mean, really, where they were killing him. They were taking something out of him that already removed. And this doctor, yes, I know his name, he's deceased. I wanted to mention on this was another one out of all this list since 70. Professor Amy Bishop, she was at the University of Alabama, and this happened in late, I think in December of 10, about that time span, a couple of months before or after. She was a professor, and she walks in the university, and she guns down 3 fellow professors and kills them. They later tie all this back, go back to Boston, where she was from, and her brother was shot. Now then, I called her an attorney. His name was Miller, and he said, well, I worked with you briefly at the district attorney's office in '80. And I thought the way he sounded, he was going to be able to use testimony or something. Well, he called back 10 minutes later, and it was a no-go. And then later he had to, for insanity, had to use the insanity defense, which the woman was programmed in mind control, and that has nothing to do with mental illness. I want to say this too. The woman that I was told was my mother had the twins. The woman that killed the twins, and the life I led was indescribable. She was in Governor George Wallace of Alabama's gubernatorial campaigns, some of them anyway, also the presidential. Let me clarify this. I don't think for one moment that George Wallace liked anything about the woman, but she worked in the campaign, wore her little bonnet, and she was actually with him when George Wallace was shot in Laurel, Maryland. So you get a whole bunch of stuff that can't be a coincidence. Nobody prints this. I'm the one that, I'm going to drop it at this, so don't know if anybody's listening or not, but